This is the Kindness Matters podcast, a space for stories that inspire, challenge, and bring us a little closer together. If you've been looking for a reminder of the good in people, you're in the right place, because kindness matters, and so do you. It's kindness we are. Hey, hello, and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Kindness Matters podcast. I am your host, Mike Rathbun, and I say this every single time, and I mean it every single time. Thank you for tuning in to the podcast today. And if you listen every week, you're probably tired of hearing this, but on the off chance that there's somebody who's new, I realize that we all have so many hours in the day, and the fact that you're taking a portion of one of those hours out of your busy schedule to listen to this podcast absolutely means the world to me. And I thank you, for being a part of this journey. I have such a fantastic show for you guys today. Today's guest is someone whose story redefines what it means to be brave, relentless, and anchored in love. Ashlyn Thompson, co-founder and executive Hope Director of the Parent Empowerment Network, is a mother who refused to accept the limits placed in front of her daughter, and in doing so, changed what's possible for countless families. Inspired by her daughter Emery, who was born with bladder exstrophy and survived 2 near-fatal medical crises as an infant, Ashlyn became a fierce advocate for parents navigating complex medical journeys. When the only surgical option available in the United States meant a lifetime of probable incontinence for Emery, Ashlyn searched the world for something better. And that search led her family to the United Kingdom, where Emery became the first American child to undergo a groundbreaking bladder neck reconstruction procedure. Ashlyn's story is one of vision, grit, and the sort of kindness that takes the shape of action. I'm honored to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for being here, Ashlyn.
Oh, Mike, thank you so much for having me here. And it was very sweet how you were sharing your gratitude to anybody who's here listening. But and I know I can tell how genuine it is. But the reality is I thank you, Mike, too, for putting just goodness into the world. Anybody who's taking time to put love and light into the world, whether it's on a podcast or it's a compliment to a friend, a stranger, just saying something nice, sending a quick meme to make somebody laugh. That's how we raise the barometer of the world to a better energy, to a better state. And it's really cool to see you doing your part.
Thank you so much. Okay, I can quit now. We're done.
Yep, we're good. It was nice to meet everybody. So
thanks for being here.
Be kind.
What you went through, can you talk a little bit about it? Emery was born.
Yes. And life took off in a whole new way.
Yeah.
So I am the very, very proud, incredibly blessed mom of 2 children. My oldest is Cole. He just turned 9 years old. Feels more like 19 in the best of ways and the most challenging of ways. And then in 2021, I had my second child, my daughter Emery. And so she will be 5 before we know it, which is wild. But when Emery came along, I learned while I was pregnant that life was not going to go the way that I was anticipating life with a little girl. I was expecting or planning for all the, let's face it, the really cute clothes that are out there for girls,
right.
The great, the adorable nursery, just all the mother-daughter fantasies that I had of, just dreams, right? That are honest and pure, and nothing wrong with those. But I think a bit of me was just expecting smooth sailing to a point. And that is not what happened. So we
Yeah.
learned ultimately the important thing is through thanks goodness I had a really really wonderful OB who noticed on her ultrasounds at 20 weeks that baby girl looked extremely healthy. Everything was great, but she noticed the sonographer was not able to capture any images of the bladder. They're like, it's literally like we just can't see it. But they said, well, it could just be that she's emptying it and we're just catching, like when you catch a bad run of traffic lights, you're either all reds or all greens. We've all been there. So that's what they kind of likened it to for us. And ultimately, that's not what it was. It turned out that she was going to be born with something called, as you said, good job, Mike, pronouncing it, bladder exstrophy, which is a very complex congenital defect. It has no real known cause. The best medical term I hear is it's a fluke. And so, and what it means is that she was born with her lower abdomen open and her bladder was what you would say was malformed, right? Instead of being, perfectly balloon shaped, she basically had just a bladder plate, just this flat organ tissue. And it is considered one of the most physically complex defects, that a child can be born with, even more so in a lot of cases than hearts. Not saying it's more dangerous. It's just there's no real exact science on how to correct everything and make the body work the way that it's expected to work.
Yeah.
And so I had my little girl, and it was tough, Mike. I would like to say the day she was born was one of the happiest days of my life, but it was that and one of the hardest days of my life
Right.
because seeing it all, like my mom heart,
Yeah.
what I could see was how much hardship we had ahead. And I knew that there were surgeries and I knew that there was pain and I knew that there were so many challenges ahead. And my mom heart was just grieving at the same time I was meeting her. And I share that because there's a lot of self forced on shame for parents when they have a child, whether you know they're going to be born with something or you find out at delivery or any time where your heart just sinks
Yeah.
and people think that means that, or they fear that the world assumes that means you don't love your child as they are or you don't accept them. And that's a really, really common process that goes through the mind. And so that's why I share that part of the story is it took me a long time to learn. I was just so overwhelmed with love for my child. That's why it was fear that was showing up
Sure.
in the delivery room
Yeah,
along with
because
love.
I mean, on the very day that she's born, right? And it really is kind of bittersweet, right? You're thrilled that she's here and she's with you, and but yet looking ahead because and maybe I mean hearing about it prior to
Mhm.
her birth and then actually seeing it, I'm
Yeah.
sure
It's different.
put so many
It
things
just
in your head.
right. It's no different than anything in life that you're anticipating, but when it actually happens, when it arrives, it just sits differently, right? The weight of it, just settles on you in a way you cannot anticipate. And so I had Emery, and the faster story for the sake of what matters is she did have a surgery when she was an infant, less than 2 months old. We were able to have the surgery at what is described as a medical center of excellence. Oop,
Nope, I
did
gotcha.
I lose you? I'm so
No,
sorry. All of a sudden, my screen. Oh, I apologize. My screen just went away, and I was like, I wasn't sure if it shut off.
we're here. We're still here.
We're here. All right.
Medical
So let's go
Center of
back to
Excellence.
yes. We were able to have Emery's first surgery, which was just which is the closure procedure to put everything back inside when she was an infant, and it's a very traumatic surgery. I say that she was in the OR for 11 hours. She was 7 weeks old. She was in the hospital a little over a month. We did experience two really, really horrific, scary experiences where she did almost die, and I'm not saying that, like, as an exaggeration at all.
Right.
Um, that experience was a lot like, I tell people I had these almost rose-colored glasses, but rather than, the typical way of seeing them, I had these glasses, this view of the medical system that my job was to get her to the best of the best medical professionals, the greatest hospital,
Yeah.
hand her to them, and then everything would be okay. And my job was just to be mom and love her. Those glasses got ripped off, stomped on, and then thrown over a mountain.
Dear.
And again, I stress I was at a wonderful hospital, very skilled, everybody doing their best. But it turns out advocacy it was the world that I was stepping into, a role that was required of me that I had no idea what it was, that it would
Uh,
be needed. And I learned it's very hard lesson, but the lesson that came out of it was that nobody will ever know my child as well as I do, and nobody will ever be able to speak up on my child's behalf better than I can.
right.
And
Absolutely.
my connection to her was what mattered, and it deserved to have a part of the equation for everything that went into consideration to her care.
Yeah. Yeah. And theoretically or hypothetically or whatever, we know that as parents, there will be times when we will need to advocate
Mhm.
for our child. I don't think
Yeah.
you have any idea to what
No.
extent you would have to do that
Mm-mm.
for Emery.
No, I did not, but, I sure Professor Life or University of Life, right? That was a
Yeah.
crash course, and I have a wonderful support system. It's a fun family Jeopardy fact that I am a third generation medical mom. Wasn't expected, wasn't the plan, but I am.
Yeah.
Um, my mom was had to be a medical advocate for my brother with hemophilia and some other medical occurrences, and my grandmother, who I call Nani, had my uncle who was born severely brain injured due to a traumatic birth injury. So I've grown up in this world of advocates, honestly, but it
Yeah.
still didn't hit until it was
Right.
my own. It was
Well,
different.
and were you even aware that you were come from a long line of
Yeah,
advocates?
oh yeah, I've grown up my
Oh,
whole life around
okay.
it. Um, and that's and
Do
I'm
you think
very
that
blessed.
prepared you for it? To take on
Definitely
that
helped
role?
me.
Yeah.
100% it helped me. So did advocating for my father a couple years, the 2 years before I had my daughter. My father had a catastrophic stroke and lost his ability to move majority of his body and speak. And they want to put people like that in a nursing home and kinda lock them up and say, you know,
Yeah.
"That's all there is to it." And that didn't work for me. And so I learned to advocate for my dad, and that's also what taught me. That's kind of one of those earlier threads in this, what I call slow motion miracle, that had I not gone through the experience of searching for help and, different options for therapies for my dad all over the country, and we did take my dad to some other places. Had I not gone through that with him, I really don't think that I would have had the awareness or maybe the trust in myself to listen to that voice that there could be something else out there, right? So I got to practice on my dad. I kind of look at that as his last gift to me before he passed away, that I
Yeah.
got to practice on my dad. And that's why I was able to eventually end up not only finding, but then pursuing medical care outside of America, something I
Yeah.
never imagined I would need to do.
So, when you look back at that moment and you
Mhm,
realize that your daughter needed care beyond what was available, not
mhm.
just locally, but here in the United States in general, what was the emotional turning point,
Yeah.
that led you to choose the UK for her surgery?
Mhm. I don't know that I can identify a single point. I think it's more about the feeling itself that grew through the journey. And that feeling was what I really look back now and I see it as my intuition speaking to me. And as I went through this fact finding process, I was desperate for facts. It's a terrifying position. It's to hold the responsibility of making decisions for anybody that
Right.
whatever happens now will affect their entire life. It wasn't like I was making decisions for her that would just be temporary. Whatever, if
Yeah.
you make a surgical decision that changes the body composition, how the body is put together,
Yes.
that's not a light decision. And it would I knew it would go on to affect her physical health, whether it could affect her becoming a mother, or it could affect her mental health, how she saw herself, all those things. My biggest fear was, what if I'm wrong and she grows up and she hates me for having done this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
For
was
sure.
thinking about that when she was a year old. And
And that's such a bizarre concept, right?
right? Yeah.
That you had to worry about that at such a
Mhm.
young age for her. And
Yeah.
was it more of a just a, I refuse to accept that there's nothing that somebody can't do somewhere in the world for my
Yeah.
kid?
You're right. That's very close. So, it's taken me a while to figure out the best way to put it for myself, and it's something I speak about a lot now to people. I naturally transitioned into a solution seeker. I moved from being a problem solver to somebody who focused on the problem, and that limited that limited my view, that limited where I would look. It limited what I allowed to be possible that I wasn't aware of when it was a problem to solve. But I was given, whether from God, for me it's a very spiritual journey.
Yeah.
You know, there was just this overwhelming knowing inside of me. And I think everybody has these experiences at some point, Mike.
Sure.
I'm guessing you have too. And it could be something really small, it could be something really big. Sometimes it's as simple as when you get that feeling right before you're about to turn on a certain road, and all of a sudden you're like, for some reason I feel like I need to take the other path home. And I have no
Yeah.
idea why. And then later on you find out that there was a terrible accident on that road. Those aren't just TV stories. Those things happen all the
Yeah.
time.
Every day.
Exactly. And that's what I kept feeling, that I could not settle for what all of American medicine was telling me her prognosis was. And they kept telling me what a great life she could still have, and it wasn't that I don't want to say that I doubted them so much as I, there was just this refusal in me, and it was not, denial. I spent a long time questioning myself. Am I just in denial of the reality we've been given?
Yeah. I think that's natural.
Right.
Right.
Or is this really hope coming from something is this really possible? And so I did my diligence, I did my research, I talked to probably between 8 and 10 of the very top medical institutions in the country that had any type of specialization in her condition. And when I finally went back to the UK, to Great Ormond Street Hospital, which, let's back up, Mike. I think it's important for people to know.
Yeah.
I learned about the surgery that my daughter ultimately had on a Facebook parent and patient group, just a support group. And I saw on a thread that had about, I don't know, there was at least 30 comments on it, which we all know what that looks like on social media, really small. I don't often read those, but I know that I was meant to, because I saw one comment when I was scrolling through this board where a gal said, "I'm so sorry when I read these posts about how many troubles these patients and these kids grow up with. I didn't have any of these, but I had the Kelly procedure." And
And you're like, the what?
the what? And that's what so much of my research was. Surely this is available in America. It must just have a different name. I must just not be, there's just something that is crossing wires, and it's here, and it's just misunderstood.
Right.
And so I reached out to that person directly and I asked her the information or the questions I needed. And she directed me to Great Ormond Street Hospital in London, where it led me to. It's funny over there, if you don't know this, it's considered more esteemed to be called professor than doctor because most of them over there are both. So he is, of course, the doctor, but he is called
Is-
Professor Imran Mushtaq. Imran has become genuinely a family friend.
I was going to say,
Since then,
yeah.
he's very, very important to our family. But anyway, I had a Zoom conversation with this man in a hospital in a country I had never been to. Granted, it was London. I wasn't trying to go to, Timbuktu or,
Right.
you know, what, some third
Right.
world
No.
country, um, and when I had the conversation with him, I can't tell you how visceral it was in where that knowing just settled. And I am not somebody who takes uh I don't easily find confidence in my decisions in the past. I'm somebody who has a long history of struggling with being confident in myself,
Yeah.
I think that comes from my ADHD journey, not understanding how my brain is constantly trying to self protect.
Yeah.
But with this, that all went away. And then, let's see, it was 5 months from our first conversation. We were in London, and it's the best decision I've ever made in my entire life.
That's that's crazy. All you can say what you want about Facebook, and plenty of people will criticize Facebook, but in this
Yes, there was
case,
a win there.
it was more than useful, right? And
Right.
so talk to me a little bit now about, okay, so you've had the surgery. Emery is fine. I got to see her. Such a lovely little cutie patootie when we
Isn't she just a
chatted before the
firefly?
show.
She's just constant light.
Um, eh, how did you meet with Emily? It's
With
Whiting,
Emily.
right?
All right. Yes. Okay. So let's pack this up from my brain so that I can move to that
Sorry.
successfully. So, no, you're good. This is on me. This is for me. So, really quick, Emery had the surgery right before her second birthday. And normally it could take 2 to 3 years, even longer, before they know if the surgery was truly a success. And 11 months to the day Emery had her surgery, she came to me and told me that she needed to use the potty, and she did. And she is considered a medical miracle because she's literally one of the fastest, not only healing, but they've never seen success as quickly as it had occurred with her and as thoroughly as it has been with her. She's literally been studied um, from a safe perspective. I'm a protective mom, but in
Right,
an
right.
appropriate way by specialists from multiple countries. They say they've never seen a case like hers.
If she
And
goes to
so
medical school, she may run across herself in a textbook.
she
I'm
might.
just saying.
Yeah, well, I'll have to tell you some stories about some images I've seen of my daughter's anatomy
Oh
internally
god.
that I was not prepared for
Oh
at
no.
some point that I know are in textbooks. Now I had to give my permission. But anyway, so yes, so Emily, who's Emily, right? So Emily Whiting is she's more than a friend. She is truly like a sister. I met Emily a couple years before, let's see, no, it would have been a few years before that, I guess. I met Emily at a bachelorette party. We had a mutual friend. And this is before we were both married, having families, any of that. And
Okay.
then when Emily had her daughter, a couple years after that, which was shortly after I had my first child, Cole, I learned that Emily's daughter, Charlotte, had been born with a mountain of diagnoses. Literally head to toe, she had anomalies. And I was very invested in the story emotionally. Looking back, it was another one of those threads being woven into this slow motion miracle story, right? Like I
Yeah.
was obsessed is really the only word to describe how closely I followed the journey. I was sending her things like little gifts or supplies or pick-me-ups or whatnot for
Sure.
her, the family, for months. Charlotte eventually got to the place that she was, better. It wasn't life or death all the time, thank God. Things kind of moved on. And then years later, when I found out my daughter was going to be born with these medical challenges, even though I've grown up with the most supportive family and literally, like I said, third generation medical parent, it wasn't until I reached out to Emily and asked if we could talk that I had that experience of, man, I describe it as the relief that comes from connecting with somebody who feels with you, Mike, not just for
Not
you.
for you.
See,
Yes.
my mom and my grandmother, they could feel with me to an extent, but they were so far down the road that it was hard to be in the same, to land in a mental space that was close, right? Like they were lighthouses for me, but they were so far away that it just didn't feel as pertinent yet.
Yeah.
Whereas Emily was still in the throes of
Sure.
advocating for her daughter's medical complexities. She
Yeah.
lived it daily. And I get chills. I'm right now even. I didn't even speak for the first 5 minutes on the phone. I just cried. And she just waited with me and just kept saying, I know, hun. I know. It's all just love. It's okay. Just kept saying things like that.
Yeah.
And she didn't fix anything for me. She didn't tell me what to do, Mike. She didn't, give me a step directions or anything. But she showed up with me and she could feel with me because she too knew what it was like. And it busted through that invisible wall of isolation that I had no idea I was barricading myself behind.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll break right through that, won't it? Just,
It will.
oh, no, I've
And
got
well, good.
it's
And
just
so that's how things started. And
yeah.
Emily, of course, stayed in our lives. And when Emery was about 6 months old, we had gotten through our first surgery. We'd been home for a couple months. And this was an anomaly. I was folding laundry, not something I do very often. And it was that monotonous of a task. I'm sitting there folding laundry. And all of a sudden, whether it's God, universe, spirit, whatever, however anybody connects with that, for me, it was God. It was just, Ashlyn, there is a reason you cannot stop thinking about all those other families you saw in the hospital during your time with Emory. Because like I told you earlier, Mike, I had to advocate constantly for
Yeah.
my infant daughter. And
Yeah.
not for little things. I'm talking about medication changes, pain management, discussing with people the fact that my daughter was in pain and not just crying because she's a baby. Because I'm the mom,
Yes.
I could tell the difference. But I
Yes.
had I had a team of 5 pain management, doctors who would come at rounds, and I would have to explain to them the difference between her cries and her faces
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I knew her
You
in
knew
ways
her.
that they could not. And I
Right.
learned, like, I don't blame them for it, but I had to be consistent because they weren't trained to take mom's emotional feedback
Yeah.
as data points to make medical decisions.
Right.
And so I was with Emory. I went home like maybe 3 times that month for like a shower and then like 2 times to spend a little bit of time with Cole, who was only 4, outside the hospital. But the rest
Right.
of the time I couldn't be away from her in my own mind, right? And but I remembered there were so many other children there at this, it was a children's hospital, who their parents could only be there before and after work. Because there were children who were that we were on the transplant floor. And so some of these kids were there for months, up a year even.
I can't
And
even
these parents
imagine.
had to go back to work. Some of them didn't have
Yeah.
support systems. They didn't have somebody who could be with their child. And sometimes, I mean, I'm talking there were infants, toddlers, up to teenagers. And my heart just kept breaking. Like, what are they missing that they can't help but miss to help their
Yeah.
child? And so that all of a sudden it was, Ashlyn, there's a reason that you are so emotionally affected by this. It's not just to keep breaking your heart, it's to do something about it.
Yeah.
And you and Emily, I don't know that the word podcast came to mind, but that's what I took from it. I literally called Emily right that moment and I said, I'm going to pose this as a question, but I already know we're going to do it. That we need to start a podcast to connect with other parents, other caregivers of their children, no matter their medical circumstances, to one, remind them that there's nobody better suited to do this than them for their child, and two, to remind them and or teach them their voice is not an option. It is critical to
Yes.
their child's care and well-being. And we teach them how to partner with their medical team for their child to reach that great quality of life that they're after, not to fight with them or, which is what a lot of people attach to the word advocacy or advocate.
Yeah.
They seem to think it means to like initiate fights. But true advocacy is partnership. It's
Right. Right.
collaboration.
And so, what came first, the podcast or the nonprofit?
Mhm. The podcast began first. The concept of the podcast began first, and Emily lives in Ohio. I live in Indiana. We got together about a month after that phone call, spent a weekend together, and by the end of the weekend, we had an entire business plan, if you will, to create an entire nonprofit because we realized there's a lot more to this that
And
needs
it's
done, and we dove in and didn't think twice.
wow. And
And
really, I mean,
so,
who
yeah.
better? You two are probably more qualified to inform about advocacy.
Well, it's
Off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody else that would be
well, I
more
mean, it's, when I said earlier, the conversation that I learned what it means to, or how important and powerful it is to talk to somebody who feels with you, not just for you.
right.
It's like anytime you're being, like when we're being taught, right? The best teachers don't tell you what to do. They show you how to do it by example, right? They guide you,
Yeah.
but they don't just force it on you. And that's what we started out as Charlotte's Hope Foundation. Originally, we were named after Emily's daughter, Charlotte.
Emily's daughter. Surely.
And we learned later on that the word foundation meant everybody thought we were giving away money, which we were not. We would have
We are.
liked to,
Well, I
but we
mean,
were
who
not.
wouldn't, right? But yeah.
Right. And then later on, the only reason we changed the name, we tell everybody we kind of matured and grew up some more and figured out who we really were, and that evolved into what we call Parent Empowerment Network, because that's truly what we are. We are here to be the bridge for parents from emotional crisis to advocacy readiness. And we don't remove the hard. We can't take away the problems or the pain as much as we wish we could. But what we do is we show up for them to remind them, A, you're never alone. Okay.
Because I think that's
And
probably prevalent, isn't
that's,
it? For somebody who's
yep,
dealing with a complex medical situation. Is
it
they
absolutely
feel like they're
is.
the only ones that are going through it.
And Mike, I'm curious. I mean, you've had so many incredible conversations with guests, but something I've been chewing on for a while lately is that I really, really believe that there's something about this concept of isolation being the biggest enemy that humanity faces.
Yes, absolutely.
Our
Whether it's an
relationship
old
with it.
person or
Hmm.
a kid in middle school, whatever the case is. And I think was it the Surgeon General a couple years ago said that it's the biggest epidemic,
Hmm.
most serious epidemic that this country faces right now is isolation or loneliness.
Right. It is, and it's the most destructive because
Yes,
the impact it has on the spirit, the mind, and the body,
yes,
it's it's toxic. And it also shows up in, whether, like I said, whether it's self-induced, of that nobody can
Right.
possibly, like for my own child, even talking to other parents when they would have it, when you're in the throes or the flames are at your, are surrounding you,
Yeah.
what we feel is so intense that there is no way that anybody else can possibly understand what I am feeling for my child right now,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And what I learned is that people don't have to understand. They don't have to be in my shoes to get where I'm coming from, and that's why what makes us rare with Parent Empowerment Network and then our podcast Empowered by Hope is that we are very, very purposely uh, non non-specific in terms of diagnosis or medical conditions, because
Right.
it if you know what heartbreak feels like, if you have experienced fear for your child's well-being, if you have experienced the angst and the pain of not being able to be the one to make it better, then we're all in the same playing field.
Yeah.
I promise that you will be able to relate. It's not about the specifics of life, it's about the emotions that we experience as human beings that bring us together. And that's been one of the most beautiful gifts. I know, Mike, when you and I first met, we talked about the thread of hope that is woven through all of this, both what you do and what I do. And this experience for me, I think one of the greatest gifts to come from it is that realization that there's not anything out there that is so powerful and or so important that it can prevent me completely from finding connection with another person, no matter who they are, where they are, what they've done, what they've gone through. Because I really do believe, after everything I've gone through and witnessed, at our core, we all want love. We want to
Yes.
be loved. We want to give love. But it is how we go through life, how we see ourselves, how we see life, our relationship with it. That's where you start to either build barriers around that love in your center that prevents you from experiencing it, or you spread seeds of more love and more hope, and then that reflects in your own life, right?
Yeah. Oh,
And
absolutely. It ripples right back to you.
it's amazing how, I mean, I've connected with families directly. I've had the privilege of talking to either families or medical providers or advocates, you name it, so many different types of people from, last we counted, we're up to 18 countries. Sometimes we
Wow.
need some help, but I'll be honest, it is helpful how many countries do speak English as well. We're very, very spoiled here in
Yeah.
America that they do
Yeah.
that. And like the language doesn't matter, their location, their demographics, the medical condition. It's my biggest fear, and I tell this to people. One of my absolute biggest fears in life is small talk. The beauty of this journey that life threw beyond is there is very little small talk, Mike. You meet people heart to heart all
Yeah.
the time. We don't talk about
Straight to
weather.
it.
We don't talk about,
Right.
unless it's going to interrupt us getting to an appointment for our child. But
Exactly.
no.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so cool. And what you're putting out there right now, Ashlyn, and um, is you're giving people hope. Really. I mean, bottom line. Um, and you're helping them in ways that I can't even begin to count. Um, I'm gonna have to wrap it up, but I wanna how can the your website
Mhm.
I'm
Yep.
stumbling. Your
You're
website,
good.
we'll have the link to your website and your
Mhm.
podcast in the show notes. How
Beautiful.
can listeners support your mission
All right.
right now or get involved
Biggest thing,
somehow?
biggest thing that I recommend is, one, looking up the podcast Empowered by Hope, sharing it with people. I
Yes.
have yet to ever meet somebody who doesn't somehow know another parent or caregiver who is on the journey of a child who's got some medical needs. Okay.
That may
And
be
it
an
could also be
occupational hazard.
somebody, it is. Also, it could be somebody who had a medical experience with their child and they're past it. But I will tell you, some of the people I've seen the biggest impact hit are the ones who went through the NICU journey 20 years ago and never had anybody to talk to them about it and relate to them. And
Yeah.
I have seen healing and breakthroughs in people who had no idea how much they were carrying with them because nobody ever connected with them about it. And so sharing our podcast is always appreciated. And, just educating yourself on that there is a resource available. It's a great thing to empower yourself with another tool or a gift you can share with somebody else to help them with very little effort.
Yeah. Very little effort. Yeah, absolutely. Ashlyn, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate. I could talk for hours, really, probably about this.
Well, this was wonderful.
And I had a list of questions that I didn't even touch on. Um, that
That's all right.
you know what? It's such an honor to meet you and to have you share your story with me. And I wish you all the best, all the most success.
Oh, well, thank you, Mike. I'm so grateful to be here, and I encourage all your listeners to keep coming back to you for the dose of hope and humor and humanity. We could always use as much of that as possible. So thank you.
Amen. Take care. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
On the news, the anger's loud, but it's not.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us for today's episode of the Kindness Matters podcast with my very special guest, Ashlyn Thompson. I really appreciate you tuning in and being a part of this kindness community. If you liked what you heard, leaving a quick review or comment really helps others to find the show, and it means a lot to me personally. And hey, if you can't support us financially, that's totally okay. The best way you can support the show is to go out and do one random act of kindness for a stranger today. But if you are in a position to help us grow, you can make a one-time gift or join one of our monthly supporter tiers over on Buy Me a Coffee. That's a link that'll be in the show notes along with our merch link as well. We'll be back next week with another new episode, but until then, remember, kindness matters, and so do you.